I'm doing something different this few days. I'm going to REA the wild robot each videos. I will read you guys some chapters each video. I will keep rating until I'm finish reading the book. I hope that you like and subscribe and comment.
The ocean. Our story begins on the ocean, with the wind and rain and thunder, lightning and waves. A hurricane roared and raged through the night, and in the middle of the chaos, a cargo ship was sinking down, down, down to the ocean floor. The ship left hundreds of crates floating on the surface. But as the hurricane thrashed and swirled and knocked them around, the crates also began sinking into the depths. One after another, they were swallowed up by the waves, until only 5 crates remained. By morning, the hurricane was gone. There was no clouds, no ships, no land in sight. There was only calm, water, and clear skies, and those 5 crates lazily bobbing along the ocean current. Days passed, and then a smudge of green appeared on the horizon. As the crates drifted closer, the soft green shapes slowly sharpened into a hard edge of a wild rocky island. The first, the first crate rode to shore on a tumbling, rumbling wave, and then crashed against rocks. With such force, the whole thing burst apart. Now, reader, what I haven't mentioned is the tightly packed inside each crate was a new, brand new robot. The cargo ship had been transporting hundreds of them before it swept up in the storm. Now, only 5 robots were left. Actually, only 4 were left, because when that first crate crashed against the rocks, the robot inside shattered to pieces. The same thing happened to the next crate. It crashed against the rocks, and the robot's parts flew everywhere. Then it happened to the next crate, and the next. Robot limbs and torsos were flung into ledges. A robot had splashed into a tide pool. A robot foot skittered into the waves. And then came the last crate. It followed the same path as the others, but instead of crashing against the rocks, it sloshed against the remaining of the first 4 crates. Soon more waves having it up out of water. Heavying it up of the water. It soared through the air, spinning and glistening until it slammed down into a tall shelf of rocks. The crate was cracked and crumbled, but the robot was safe inside. Chapter 2. The Otters. The island northern shore had become something of a robot grave site. Scattered across the rocks were the broken bodies of dead robots. They sparkled in the early morning light, and their sparkles caught the attention of some very curious creatures. A gang of sea otters was romping through the shallows. When one of them noticed the sparkling objects, the otters all froze. They raised their noses to the wind, but they smelled only the sea. So they curiously crept over the rocks to take a closer look. The gang slowly approached a robot torso. The biggest otter stuck out his paw and swayed the heavy thing and quickly jumped back, but nothing happened. So they wriggled over to a robot hand. Another brave otter stuck out her paw and flipped the hand over. It made a lovely clicking sound on the rocks, and the otters squeaked with delight. They spread out and played with arms and legs and feet. More hands were flipped. One of the otters discovered a robot head in the tide pool, and they all dove in, took turns rolling it along the bottom. And then they spotted something else. Overlooking the gravesite was the one surviving crate. Its sides were scraped and dented, and a wide gash ran across Its top. The otters scrambled up to the rocks and climbed into the big box. 10 furry faces poked through the gash, eager to see what was inside. What they saw was another brand new robot, but this robot was different from the from the others. It was still in one piece, and it was surrounded by spongy packing foam. The otters reached through the gash and tore at the foam. It was soft and squishy. They squeaked as they snatched at the fluffy stuff. Shreds of it floated away on the sea breeze. In all of the excitement, one of their paws excitedly slapped one of the important little buttons on the back of the robot head. Click! It took a while for the otters to realize that something was happening inside the crate, but a moment later they heard a low whirring sound. Everyone stopped and stared, and then the robot opened her eyes. Chapter 3. The Robot. The robot computer brain booted up. Her program began coming online, and then, still packed in the crate, she automatically started to speak. Hello, I am Rosin, Unit 7134, but you may call me Roz. While my robotic systems are activating, I will tell you about myself. Once fully activated, I will able to move and communicate and learn. Simply give me a task and I will complete it. Over time, over time, I will find better ways to complete my task. I will become a better robot. When I not needed, I will stay out of the way and keep myself in good working order. Thank you for your time. I am fully activated. Chapter 4. The Robot Hatches. As you might know, robots don't really feel emotions, not the way animals do. And yet, as she sat in her crumbled crate, Ross felt something like curiosity. She was curious about the warm ball of light shining down from above. So her computer brain went to work, and she identified it. The light, it was the sun. The robot felt her body absorbing the sun energy. With each passing minute, she felt more awake. Then her battery was good and full. Roz looked around and realized that she was packed inside a crate. She tried to move her arms, but they were restrained by cords. So she applied more force. The motors in her arms hummed a little louder, and the cord snapped. Then she lifted her hands and pulled apart the crate, like a hatchling breaking from a shell. Roz climbed out into the world. Chapter 5. The Robot Gravesite. Those otters were now hiding behind a rock. Their round heads nervously poked out and they watched as a sparkling monster emerged from the crate. The monster slowly turned her head and scanned the coastline. Her head turned and turned, all the way around, and it didn't stop turning until she was looking right at the otters. Hello, otters. My name is Roz. The robot voice was simply too much for the skittish creatures. The biggest otter squeaked and the whole gang suddenly took off. They galloped back across the robot gravesite, flopped into the ocean, and raced through the waves, just as fast as they could. Roz watched the otters go, but her eyes lingered on the sparkling objects and littered the shore. The objects looked strangely familiar. The robot swung her left leg forward and then her right, and just like that, she was taking her very first steps. She stomped away from her crate and over the rocks and through the gravesite until she was standing above a broken robot body. She leaned in and noticed the word rosin lightly sketched on the torso. She noticed the same word on all the torsos, including her own. Ross continued exploring the gravesite until a playful little ocean wave washed over the rocks. She automatically stepped away from it. Then a bigger wave swept towards her. And then she stepped away again. And then a gigantic wave crashed over the rocks and engulfed the entire gravesite. Heavy water pounded against her body and knocked her to the ground, and her damage sensors flared for the first time. A moment later, the wave was gone, and Ross lay there, dripping and dented and surrounded by dead robots. Ross could feel her survival instincts, the part of her computer brain that made her want to avoid danger and take care of herself so she could continue functioning properly. Her instincts were arguing her to move away from the ocean. She carefully got to her feet and saw that high above the shore, the land was bursting with trees and grasses and flowers. It looked lush and safe up there. It looked like a much better place for our robot. She had just one problem. To get up there, she would have to climb the sea cliffs. Chapter 6. The Climb. Crack, thunk, clang. Roz was having a little trouble climbing the cliffs. She had a new dent on her rear and a long scrape down her side, and she was just about to get another ding when a crab scuttered about from under a piece of driftwood. The crab looked up and Lee showed off his giant claws. Everyone was afraid of his claws, but not the robot. She just looked down and introduced herself. Hello, crab. My name is Ross. After a brief standoff, the crab carelessly backed away. I mean, consistently backed away, and that when Ross noticed how easily he moved over the rocks. With his wide stance and his grippy feet, the crab could crawl up and down any rock face. So Ross decided to try out his climbing technique. She spread her arms wide and climbed each of her hands into the cliffside. She jammed one foot into a crack and lifted her other foot into a narrow ledge. And just like that, she was climbing. Ross moved awkwardly at first. A chunk of rock crumbled in her hand, and she had trouble finding footholds. But as she climbed higher and higher, she started to get a hang of it. Seagulls squawked from their nest, cliff nests and soared away when the robot came too close. But Ross paid them no mind. She was she was focused on getting to the top. Up and up and up she went. Mm, Aesthetic